In 2006, one of the Darfur rebel factions, the Sudan Liberation Army, the SLA, signed an unpopular peace deal with the Sudanese government. And that led to the two main groups, the SLA and the Justice and Equality Movement, JEM, splintering into several groups. In August 2004, most of these groups met in Arusha in Tanzania, trying to draw up a plan for talks with the Sudanese government, but no final agreement was reached and another round of talks was needed. Well, the former rebels of the south of Sudan, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, or SPLM, have an existing peace agreement with the government, and it's hoped that this relatively successful peace deal between the north and the south will show that talks can work and encourage everyone to participate in the meetings in Libya. Right now, the SPLM is hosting a second round of talks between the Darfur rebel factions. Al Jazeera's Mohamed Vall was granted rare access to these talks in southern Sudan.
They came from all over the world on the invitation of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, or SPLM, to unify their stance ahead of the Libya talks on Darfur. The choice of place for these talks could not have been more significant. It is here in the capital of the south that the vision of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement is being turned into a reality on the ground, a self-rule version on independence, all as a result of a peace deal many Darfurian rebels would like to emulate.
The
Naivasha agreement is the ideal agreement in the whole wide world. We would like to have a similar agreement for Darfur.
Under a close supervision by SPLM, the Darfur rebels are being inspired by the tactics, the experience and the success of that rebel movement in dealing with the Sudanese government. The meetings are held behind closed doors, and Al Jazeera was the only media organization that was allowed inside the talks for 10 minutes before we were asked to leave. The most difficult issue they seem to have is the sheer number of groups and splinter groups vying for recognition and a foothold on the political map.
The multiplicity of groups is a real problem. The Sudanese government fabricated some groups and gave them fake names to pretend that they are splinters of the Sudanese Liberation Movement. These groups are an obstacle for unifying the movement.
Some participants, however, try to minimize the difficulties.
I think there's no any problem because most of the, at least the majority of the movement, they are here. They are representative here. We have a good atmosphere here to build a common position in order to go to the negotiation.
But the absence of a major faction like the SLA of Abdul Noor is on their minds.
We respect Abdul Wahid as one of the leaders of the SLA, but the important thing is that the issue of Darfur doesn't represent one person only. If all the movements agree on something, he has to be part of that.
The talks that were expected to wrap up last Saturday are dragging, and the time pressure is growing as the Libya meeting is only a week from now. So much so that some have doubts those talks will even take place. Mohamed Vall, Al Jazeera, Juba, Southern Sudan.